Hello, LinkedIn Live. This is your host, David Moricca, founder and CEO of Socialive, here for another session of Startup Series Live. Coming to you today from my hometown of El Segundo, California, in the Los Angeles area. I've been on the road for a couple of weeks, so it's nice to be back in LA. And really excited for today's session. As you know, some of you who have seen the program, Startup Series Live is really kind of a series aimed at entrepreneurs, startup owners who are really kind of in various stages of their journey. And the whole goal is to, around the LinkedIn Live community, kind of build an experience platform for folks who are going through this journey to learn from experts. You know, we've had a number of angel investors on the program, we've had some lawyers, we've had all kinds of folks. But today we have someone really exciting on the personal branding side. Today's guest is Brittany Crystal. She's joining us from Huntington Beach, California. She's a LA native, and she has really got an amazing experience. She's the founder of her own digital products and content creation business. She's had over a decade of experience in the space. She's also the host of the Beyond Influential podcast, which has been in the top 20 management and marketing podcasts on iTunes, and has over 100,000 plus downloads and growing. She also worked with a LinkedIn favorite, Gary Vee. Was always part of his personal branding team very early on. And somewhat importantly as well, like myself, she studied law, but is a non-practicing lawyer. So both of us never practiced, but we both studied law. So maybe we'll talk about that today as well. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Brittany Crystal, coming in today from Huntington Beach, California. Brittany, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Well, thanks. As I mentioned earlier in kind of the beginning of the program, the whole idea behind this program, Startup Series Live, which is coming on LinkedIn Live via Socialive, is to really help entrepreneurs hear from great experts like yourself. And you really are an expert in kind of the personal branding and digital content creation flow, which is something, for a lot of entrepreneurs, as well as C-suite execs, may be very new. I want to start by saying congratulations on starting your new business. Can you tell us about it?
Well, thank you so much. I guess it is a new business, but it doesn't feel like a new business when you're doing it day in, day out. So I was at Vayner and I was working for Gary Vee up until maybe May 2017. And basically I knew I wanted to go out on my own, but I didn't exactly know what that looked like. I started off by taking clients and kind of doing something very similar to what I was doing for Gary, and basically helping entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial-minded people grow their personal brands, like in the trenches, helping them, create content, do all of the things, strategy. And then I needed to put my money where my mouth is and really start building out my own personal brand. And so in fall of that year of 2017, I started the podcast, and I started taking my content very seriously, because I need to test everything I do, and I do not suggest anything to anyone that I don't do myself. And honestly, this stuff works. It works when I was doing it for other people, and it works when I was doing it for myself. So right now my business looks very different than it did when I started. I don't do kind of the consultation, just one-on-one thing. Now I build out digital products. Now I create content, and all of these things with the end goal in mind to help other people, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial-minded people, basically take control of their lives and business. I've seen just the power of what it can do, and everybody has a personal brand. So it's something I'm incredibly passionate about and I love.
Well, very exciting, and congratulations. It's amazing to build your own thing. And, to that point, what drove you to be an entrepreneur? Has this always been something that's been in the works from a young age, or is it something new?
So hindsight's definitely 2020. I definitely grew up, I guess I didn't think of my father as an entrepreneur. He has a solo practice doctor in Westlake Village in California. And really the whole thing was, I went to private school growing up, and the whole thought was, okay, doctor was kind of out for me because I wasn't really a math science person. So law is the safe, stable profession. And growing up in LA, I wanted to be in Hollywood. And of course, the advice at that time, and I know it's even in my yearbook at that point, is, okay, entertainment lawyer then. Lawyer is safe, lawyer is the route. I always did well in school. That was going to be it. That's the key to money and safety and security. Mm-hmm. And basically I did the thing where I rushed I rushed out of college. I graduated in 3 years. I rushed to kind of get started into this legal world. And once I hit law school, I was like, whoa, that was actually the first time I was like, this is just not for me. I hadn't taken the time beforehand to really even speak to lawyers or people who were actually practicing the profession, which is a huge mistake. Yeah. And now it's so much easier with the internet to have access to these people and actually do your homework. But I found out in law school and kind of had that quarter life crisis that this was not it. And then just to kind of jump forward, the more jobs I had, every job definitely taught me something. I learned some very hard lessons about the real world that way. But after every job, I noticed there was always a certain tipping point where I really needed a lot of freedom, or now I know freedom's my highest value, so I need that to be happy. Yep. And entrepreneurship wasn't a thing. Actually, I did get an A in my entrepreneurship class in law school, but that was pretty much like the only exposure I had until I entered the real world. And then as I started going job to job, I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I, no offense to the people I work for, some of them I was like, I don't understand this role. And it wasn't a meritocracy. And it just got to a point where I was like, I know I'm going to have my own thing. I couldn't exactly put my finger on it. Actually, I had a conversation totally random with my dad last night, and he was like, you were never good at sucking up. And I was never good at sucking up. I still don't know how to do that. And so for me, it's like, if you're not going to be good at sucking up and you can't play that game, you need to create your own game.
Yeah, you want to play ball. You don't want to play politics, right? You want to get out there and do it.
Yeah, and so if I wanted to, have things based on merit, I needed to create my own thing. So it wasn't like, oh, I knew I was going to work for myself because everybody had told me I should go. People told me I was crazy when I didn't go practice law.
Yeah, and so I'm going to circle back to that, but because you made some really great points about those different experiences taught you and prepared you for this next stage. Can you share a little bit about what you learned, whether it's through the Gary Vee experience or others, that kind of prepared you to take that leap that you've now made?
Well, the Gary Vee experience changed everything for me. So I went into law school wanting to be an entertainment lawyer. I basically kind of do something similar now where I help people. I wanted to represent writers and directors and help them figure out how to essentially position themselves and pitch themselves to get these jobs, people that I thought had talent. And now I know everybody has a unique talent. And it's essentially exactly what I wanted to be doing, just the format that I wanted to be doing it in. I wasn't hitting it. So after law school, I worked at a talent agency, and that didn't fit exactly right to me. I worked at a management company next, and that didn't fit exactly right to me, but it was more creative. And so I realized I wanted something creative, even though I'd never considered myself as a creative. Then I worked at a production company, and I realized they were always pitching, but I was like, I want to make the decisions. So then I went to work on a network who was receiving the pitches, and that was too corporate for me. So I basically went down this path of having a bunch of jobs that all had pieces of what I like to do, but wasn't the fit. And so actually, I was studying for my MBA. I was actually trying to apply to business school. I was studying for the GMAT, and I thought I needed to go the education route because this world really didn't fully exist yet. And my now fiance was like, you don't need to do this if you want to be I thought I wanted to be in marketing and branding in some capacity. I knew I had an intuitive sense of what worked, but I thought I needed this educational background to get the job. And he actually sent me a Gary Vee tweet, and he was like, look into this guy. I've been following him. I think you'd like him. And I picked a job that I thought I could get. I hoped I could get in his new LA office and got my foot in the door that way. And maybe 4 months in, I met him at the Christmas party, and we happened to be on the same trivia team. And over the next few months, he kept asking me if I would consider moving to New York because he was about to get really serious about his personal brand. And he thought I knew something about influence and would be helpful. And so I moved out there and treated that. I was there more than a year in New York, but I basically went in with the mindset that was going to be my MBA. Yeah. And I didn't think I actually at that point had the idea that I was going to be working for myself, but I thought I was going to impress the hell out of him and then come up with a startup idea that he would invest in. Okay. That was my plan. And then I fell in love with the personal brand space 3 months in working on his personal brand because I got to touch every piece of what it takes to build a personal brand right now online. And I was in the DMs and I'm seeing the response that people have to this person. And this is where I liked personal branding better than I like branding for brands, is that the response that he gets from his personal content is nothing like if VaynerMedia was to tweet or to post content. It's a totally different ballgame, and it was affecting people on a very deep level and actually getting these people to take action in their lives and start these businesses and do these things. And so I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It just speaks to the point of like, a career is long, and there's no direct line. When you're young in college, maybe, kind of in graduate school, in some cases, you're like, oh, well, here's the plan. But the plan reveals itself, and it reveals itself when it's supposed to, right? I very much, didn't expect that I would be exactly where I am now. And I think the next phase of the journey, I just come to appreciate. I don't know exactly what it is. We'll just kind of find out as we go, right?
Oh yeah, I'm way less rigid about it. I had a plan until the plan stopped working. And then I guess over time, and I guess this is what it is to be an entrepreneur, things change. Now I expect the change, and now it's just, just go with the flow. Like if I have to pivot, I pivot. Like I know my business, I can plan out 3 months. I know kind of what I'm going launch-wise, but I'm way more open to just adjusting.
Yeah. Well, I want to just kind of, before we go to the personal branding piece, because I think it's really important for a lot of the viewers here. But look, you went to Georgetown Law Center, great law school. I mean, the path is right there, right? You can go work at a corporate law firm. Financially, you're set for life. Mother, father's probably like, that's exactly what you should do. I mean, that must have been hard to get off that path. What did you learn from making the jump and not going straight from law school into corporate firm?
Yeah, so whether it's good fortune or not good fortune, I was in law school during the crash, and so I actually did have firm jobs both my first summer and second summer, but they were in securities regulations litigation and not the sexy entertainment law job that I was hoping to get. It was a time where you weren't just only doing steak dinners and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So basically I worked at this firm in Jersey. And again, like I'm actually still friends with a lot of the lawyers who are there, but I didn't meet any lawyers even during my law school time whose lives I aspired to, whose jobs I aspired to. I had that realization really hard during my second summer. And just the thought of having that be my life, no matter what the pay was, horrified me. And I was getting paid, you get a 6-figure salary starting. And I was like, this isn't worth it. And that was the first time, I think growing up, the whole thing is safe and stable is money. And that's what it is. I was like, this isn't worth it. It was the first time I really considered, oh shoot, like I need to find what actually makes me happy. And so that jump, I basically started having these difficult conversations with my family, like, I don't like this. And of course, they're not lawyers, but they're like, no, like the practice is going to be different. Like, oh, just don't worry about it. And I was like, no, this isn't working. I know this isn't working. And so I also knew that I'm self-aware. So I knew I might get sucked in if I started a job that paid well and it would be hard to leave. So basically I passed the bar in New York, knowing that basically I have this license. It's not because I couldn't do it. I don't want to do it. And then I went to get a job in Hollywood.
Well, kudos to you for making the leap. So let's talk about personal branding. So you work with business and creative entrepreneurs and executives to help them grow their personal brand, achieve some of their business goals. Let's start from the big picture. Like, why is building a personal brand critical to an entrepreneur, critical to a C-level exec as well? Why is it important?
Personal branding is your business. Everyone has a personal brand. You're monetizing it if you go to work, even if you're not going to work, or if you don't work, you're going to want to work, especially people who are already involved in it. Well, one, the personal brand actually does work for you. I always say it's both offense and defense, but there are so many people right now who have so much experience, especially if we're talking about like C-levels, who are losing out on different types of opportunities because somebody younger with a fraction of the experience is posting content online. Like, it is very real. And we all have, if the only person who knows your work is maybe a manager or a few select people, you need to rely on those people to vouch for you. And I've seen time and time again that that's not always the case. And why leave it to the luck of the draw for somebody to really like you and go to bat for you when you can be creating this proof? And it's also great because then you have a track record. So when people do look you up, you can already be building that trust and have that brand be doing work for you. So you don't need to sell as hard. I'm all about attraction marketing. And what's great is when I launch a product, I don't need to go pitching and needing to reach out and like tell people about how great my product is. They want my product. They come to me because they already know, like, and trust me. And especially with LinkedIn, I love the personal pages and using personal pages and having people have their employees use their personal pages to elevate the company presence. It all feeds itself. Like I was saying about Gary and VaynerMedia, I don't care about VaynerMedia's content. I care about Gary's content. You're not going to care about my business page, Brittany Crystal LLC's content. You want to hear from me. And that's the way it is for everybody. And yeah, your mission, you created this company, you're the founder. I want to know why. All of those things invest me in social life. Like that's just, I mean, it just makes sense to me.
Love it. You've been kind of stressing the importance around LinkedIn in a lot of your content. Yes. Talk to us. Why is LinkedIn important? Why is it an important channel for folks from a personal branding perspective?
So I'm not one of these people. There's some people who've been using LinkedIn forever, and now that they've made changes, they're winning on LinkedIn. But I didn't really start taking it seriously until the end of 2017. And just in general, I'm platform agnostic. I need to know how to build brand everywhere, and I need it to be efficient and I need it to be effective, especially for people who are entrepreneurs and they're super busy. I know like you need to get the most bang for your time and your buck. Since 2016, after the Microsoft acquisition, things have been changing here. Obviously, we're on live video right now. That's crazy. Some people still don't even know that LinkedIn has native video. People kind of went into the Facebook, Instagram thing. It's a very pay-to-play area right now. Yeah. There's so much white space on LinkedIn, low barrier to entry, friendly algorithms. I can go on and on about the benefits of LinkedIn, but also the mindset here is different. And not very many people are creating content because they're still kind of stuck in the old version of this. And so anybody actually creating content is winning right now. And so I've just been in love with it. I saw the power for myself when I was actually working with other clients and posting for them. And then, like I said, I needed to put my money where my mouth is. So I started posting. And I was kind of doing a fraction. I know I was doing a fraction of the effort that I was putting in on an Instagram, which was my largest platform at that time. And I was seeing results right away. I was seeing crazy engagement. I was getting high quality clients who, wanted to pay me. I was got random like 6-figure job offers. I had brands reaching out to me. All of these things were happening. I hadn't ever considered I was always going to be a behind the scenes person in my head initially. It wasn't the thought that I was going to be a personal brand and this was a thing. And after not very much effort, somebody came and was like, hey, would you come speak at this event? And then somebody else, would you come speak at this event? Do you want to go to South by? Do you want to? It just snowballed, and it snowballed very quickly within 3 months. And I was like, people need to know about this. I actually was building out a product completely different. And then I was like, people need to know what's happening here and how to leverage it.
So awesome. So when you think about personal branding, like who can benefit from this? Is this for everyone? Is this for the masses?
Everyone, from student up to whoever. Like it really does not matter. And I can't think of an industry at all that it wouldn't work for. And it's funny to me because I do speak at colleges at times, and there's still even though they have the phone, there's still such an old school mindset about branding yourself and using LinkedIn for to speak to recruiters. And it's like, what are you doing? You can create whatever you want. So as young as whatever age, let's say 16 or 13, if you're allowed to use those certain apps, all the way up to people I know a few people who feel like they're kind of out of the game because they're older, but they have so much experience. So if you're young, you can leverage it. And if you're older, you can leverage it.
Well, let's think about, so let's talk to entrepreneurs here who might be wanting to kind of create their own content and get themselves out there. There can be barriers, right? There's fear of actually creating video content or creating content of any sort. There is the element of, well, what content do I create? There's also, at least I've dealt with this a little bit, the idea of, I'm not comfortable bragging or being kind of like self-promoting. So there's that element there. So when you think about folks who are trying to de-ice the plane, to kind of get out there, what are the first steps they should take to get this process moving?
So there are definitely a few things. I have 3 brand laws when it comes to just branding, and it works for personal brands, it works for any brand, and that's clarity, consistent content, and community, which is engaging. But basically, at the end of the day, what you need to do is be clear about who you're speaking to and why. And so the ultimate thing about getting over, I want to address, because you mentioned a few points, the getting over the fear. The getting over the fear part is about delivering the value and teaching. And this is what a lot of people are intimidated by video. I know we're doing live video. This isn't for everyone. Not everyone wants to be a performer. And one of the first things a lot of entrepreneurs say to me is, I do not want to be Gary Vee. I don't want to do that. Like, I'm more of an introvert. And I'm like, I don't want you to try to be Gary Vee. I don't, like, that is not what it is. It is based on your skill set. So like I said, the great thing about LinkedIn is you do have status posts, text updates, you can do video, you can do all of these things. You can write articles and leverage where you're strong. And my whole thing, especially like with a LinkedIn and building your brand, it is about education and value. It's not about saying how great you are. So you have 3 thoughts a week about what you do for a living. What's something you found interesting, and give a little context. You can just share something and add a sentence. Add talk about your favorite quote. What podcasts do you like that have really helped you? What happened to help you get your first job? What recommendation would you give for somebody to come into your industry? It's systematically thinking about things like that, but it's not about thinking about you. It's what would the people who you'd like to be speaking to want to know? Yeah. And coming at it from that position, and that kind of stops the, oh, everybody's looking at me. It's like, no, I'm here to help you.
Yeah, it's a mindset of give, not take, right? It's kind of putting value out there in the universe and the LinkedIn.
Yeah, and by giving, people want to get from you. Right. And so that's what ends up happening. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see on LinkedIn generally, is it's still a spammy platform. That way you still get a ton of those messages that are just straight hard sells, and they don't build a relationship. But the entire thing is building a relationship and imagining, I think, being clear. I like to have people pick a specific person they're talking to, depending on what your goals are, but feeling like you are building a relationship with that person. And it actually builds out. The more you niche down, the more it actually scales out. It's just a super interesting thing that people can't seem to get their mind around, but it works every time.
Find your lane, right? And if it's that kind of niche lane, actually, the communities are much bigger than you think around these different passion points I've found. So let's say you're creating creating content. So that's great. You kind of got yourself out there, but you need to attract an audience. And you need to attract the right audience. How do you do that?
Well, for me, not only knowing and thinking about who you'd want to be attracting, I do think putting out content helps attract the right people, because people will know, whether they like your voice, they like your vibe, they like what you're talking about. But ultimately, it comes down to engagement. Another thing about LinkedIn is a lot of comments and likes and shares all act as content. And so you can be engaging and also building your content at the same time. But people don't want to do their homework, and that's the most important part. Okay. Go look at the influencers you follow, or the people who are in similar lanes. What are people interested in? Go engage with them. Go like their stuff. Have actual conversations with people. I can't tell you how many people build out products and throw out content and expect people to go like their stuff or buy from them, and they don't go like and comment and consume and buy from other people. You need to be willing to have the conversation and not just throw something out there in hopes that people find you.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you got to kind of engage with those who are engaging with you and others in that lane. So I think it's partially that give, you give with the content, but you also give by engaging with others that are engaging with your content and others in your space.
Yeah, and I mean, not just LinkedIn, but I've had enough interviews with people who are huge influencers on Instagram, and the way that all of them have grown is going through relevant hashtags. It's through going to pages to engage with those people who are the people, you don't necessarily always know who's your right audience. You can kind of go through different influencers, different hashtags, different people that they follow, and you got to go down the rabbit hole of doing your research. But they all grew from engaging with those people. And then once you engage with them, people are like, oh, cool. Just reciprocity in general as humans. You go back and you want to go like something. And then somebody sees all the great things and interesting things that you have to say, and they like your vibe. They follow you.
So interesting. This is great, tactical kind of feedback for folks. So how can a business exec or a creative thought leader really stand out in a space where there is a lot of content and a lot of voices?
See, people always worry about trying to be heard above the noise in that way, but you are heard when you're. So here's the deal, like you do need to not just be bland. And with content, you do need to, which is why I stress clarity so much. And I don't like when a lot of kind of corporate people outsource their voice. You need to develop your voice and your thoughts and your opinions. I want to hear what you have to say specifically about marketing. And you having that voice, nobody else has your voice, nobody else has your experience, nobody else has your opinions. And if you are actually expressing like real things and not just copying and pasting what someone else says, people are attracted to it. You will naturally stand out. There's enough people talking about, personal branding. Personal branding is not a new thing, but my brand is growing because I'm very direct. How I deliver my information is different. My experience is extremely different. Who I've worked with is different. And some people just like that style, so that I just keep putting out my actual voice and engaging with people. And those people come. And then when those people like it, they tell their friends, they share it. And that's the snowball effect. So it's less about worrying about, I don't want people to worry about being different. I want them to worry about being themselves.
Yep. Well, and you've talked a lot about consistency, and consistency almost matters more than the content you put out. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I definitely think at the beginning, for sure.
Okay.
I think showing up, people need to know to rely on you, just like anything. People trust people who show up and do what they say they're going to do. So showing up, not only if you're new, showing up, you're going to get better over time. And so I know there's some people, if you're dealing with somebody who's like a C-level executive, they have a more clear positioning on their brand. But there's some people who are like, I'm confused and I don't know what to do. And they try to niche down. It's completely fine to change. What's great about the personal brand is people evolve. But you can find out a lot about what you actually like and getting clear on your brand by putting out content related to different things. And if you realize you're talking a lot about something that you don't enjoy, it's time to pivot and think about something else. And so that kind of helps. They all play together to help you figure out where you should be focusing.
A lot of folks will probably be asking themselves, maybe you've heard this before, well, okay, I can create content, but I'm in the business of creating revenue. I got to drive revenue. And, if I do this, does it drive revenue? So that's an important question that I think folks ask, like, how do you turn this content creation process into revenue generation?
Yeah, so there's so many different avenues depending on which business you're in. Now, once you've created content, what's interesting to me is that it does live on. So even if you're not thinking like, okay, I'm putting this content out and I'm getting direct ROI right away, unless it's, Facebook ads or Instagram ads, content that I've created a year ago or podcasts that I put out a year and a half ago is generating revenue for me now because I built that brand loyalty. I think people want the short-term gain. Right. But it's so crazy to me. Nobody's thinking long term. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, you should be thinking about the long game. Like, to me, that's always a ridiculous notion. This is a long game. It takes it takes a minimum of 3 months to see something. But the people that you've seen who have built these huge personal brands and who everyone's idolizing have been doing this for over a decade. Yeah. Like content alone. And right now, things have been sped up. So if you are consistent I promise if you're consistent for a year on one social platform, like an Instagram or a LinkedIn, you will see monetary results if you're doing it right. Yeah. The question is, if you want to be strategic and do Facebook ads and do different types of things, great. But if you have an audience, if you have, 100 people who actually want to hear what you have to say, you can monetize those people.
No, it's great feedback. And I think having the long game mindset is hypercritical. When you're creating content and doing personal branding, it's no different than building a startup, right? If you build a startup with the idea that you're going to build it and you're going to exit in a year, don't even start, because it's a long journey, right? But it's you got to kind of stick with it and keep kind of pushing, and it'll happen.
Yeah, it's always, and this is just the honest truth, the people who ask, if you ask in the first 2 minutes about the ROI, I can always tell you that person's never going to build a personal brand, and they are always the people that also covet the people who have it. And they're like, how do you get that? But they don't have the patience for it. And so that's why I do say I work with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial minded people specifically, because if you just want someone else to do the work for you, or you just want to hire an agency to have your source your voice, I'm not gonna know your name. You're not gonna be somebody that people are talking about.
Yeah, it's great feedback. So what would you say are the consistent challenges that content creators have, that kind of keep them from being able to put out consistent content? And do you have any, again, tips for how to get over that?
I mean, a lot of it's mindset. People want it to be perfect. There's a lot of mindset work that goes into anything. Yeah. Over the last year, I've really dedicated myself to focusing on it. And when I do put out any kind of product, mindset's the first thing I talk about, because you are going to give yourself excuses. It's just combating those excuses and knowing what to tell yourself, so that way you get over it faster. Just like with entrepreneurship, like when you encounter a problem in your business, you're like, okay, here's the problem. You think about it, you fix it, or you try to fix it and mitigate it going forward. And that way, if you see it again, it comes in a different way, and hopefully you get over it faster. Yep. So it's always a mindset thing. I tell people, and I know there's some people out there who are like, oh, you need to be putting 20 pieces of content out a day. Don't do that to yourself. That's not reasonable. The people who are doing that have full-scale teams. If you can put out one thought a week and show up every Wednesday, do it. If that's all you can do, just do it and dedicate to that. And if it's, a paragraph, a tweet, like whatever that length is, dedicate to that. And, I do think you need to give yourself grace sometimes. Life happens. You can't beat yourself up if you miss one thing. I mean, yes, people can, and I love teaching people how to repurpose content and to batch their content. And depending on, if you're the kind of person that can sit on a weekend for an hour and just write out a bunch of blog posts, or, do a bunch of videos, that's great. Like LinkedIn does, short videos do great here. You can probably cram out, 5 videos in 10 minutes if you're good with your phone, if that's your skill set. Like, you can make this process easy on yourself. But for me, that, again, like I said, I like LinkedIn because the engagement acts as content. So if you're wasting time on your phone anyway, you're consuming this content, just push share and give some context. Like, then you're showing up consistently.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you put out a lot of content. You obviously you've established your own personal brand. Is there something you can share about yourself that we might not have seen on some of the social channels if we follow you?
Well, I will say about the consistent content part is, this is a business, what I do, and it's not easy. And I've reached a point now in my business where I don't do it alone, and I'm building out my team. And it is harder to stay consistent. It is harder to pass off that voice. So I'm really trying to show truly the behind the scenes and the strategies behind the decisions I'm making, and be fully transparent. But I'm trying to think if there's anything that people don't fully know about me that would be super interesting for them. I feel like I share that. I'm like, I like bourbon. Okay. I spend a lot more time working now than I've ever worked. I think people think that this is like a lifestyle job, and it takes so much to make a passive income lifestyle business. So right now I feel like I've been more quiet online and just heads down working, because content creation, I think people look at content creation and they're like, oh, these people either don't have jobs or they're not really doing anything. And it's like, no, I work way too much, and the goal is to work now to then scale back, so I don't need to be working so hard.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. AJ or Daniel, I'm seeing here, are there any questions that have come in?
What's Brittany's content? What is her volume per week or day?
Yeah, great question. So one of my team members is right here. See, we keep it authentic on LinkedIn Live. We just asked the crowd here. The question was, what's your content volume on a weekly basis?
So what's interesting is I am going to scale this out. So I think I did tell you, you mentioned it at the beginning of the show, like 100,000 downloads for the podcast. That's been completely organic. That's now in my 84th week of episodes. Wow. Every Wednesday or Thursday, I put it out myself. The very first year, so I always had an editor, but the very first year I'd re-listen to every episode. I'd give him the timestamps to edit. I would distribute on every platform. So the volume depends weekly. I just hired a copywriter to help me kind of chunk down what I say in those episodes so I can distribute even more effectively. Yep. But definitely every week, one full-length pillar piece of podcast content comes out. And from that, kind of up to my time constraints, I'm tweeting during the day. I'm going on LinkedIn, posting something relevant related to what's going on. I'm posting probably on Instagram 2 to 3 times a week when it should be way more for permanent posts. Yeah. And I'm definitely posting in stories every day, also pushing the podcast and different products and letting people in. But now, like I said, I've reached the point in my business where I need to be even planning ahead of time. I have all of this content. I have 84 weeks of content from the podcast that I cannot repurpose on my own and pull apart on my own. But I've developed my voice enough that somebody can come in and help me pull those pieces. So soon it should turn into more of a machine. So I'll actually have like it's going to be 20 pieces of content a week. But right now I'm somebody, and I think this is something that can happen for a personal brand versus a regular brand. I'm very much driven by what I'm inspired by and what's going on in my life. Mm-hmm. So I'm running a mastermind right now. It's been a 4-month mastermind. And I'm kind of just like, oh, that was a great question, or that was an interesting topic. And then I'll go to Instagram and I'll write a post on it. So I don't like planning everything out because I don't think that leaves room for the magic. And I don't think people get to know who I am if everything's curated that way.
Yeah, great. And is this your first LinkedIn Live?
It is, but I'm excited that it's not going to be my last.
All right. Well, what about that, turning that podcast into a vodcast, the live vodcast?
I would love to do that. I actually think this technology is perfect for that, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, guys, I want to thank everyone for joining. Brittany, you've been so fun to speak with. There's just so much amazing insights you have, and you're able to break it down in a simplified way, because for a lot of folks, quite frankly, this is new territory, right? It's scary, it's confusing, and the fact that you can kind of, synthesize it in such a great way is awesome. So I think, this content, hopefully, folks will continue to be able to learn some of the lessons by seeing not only this video, but also following your podcast. And where should they go to download your podcast and follow you as well?
So you can find all the links to everything at brittanycrystal.com, but it's on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much everywhere that you can find podcasts.
Yeah, again, I want to thank Brittany for being here. She's incredible, an expert in digital content and personal branding, and has really built an entire productized business around this. She's also the host of the Beyond Influential podcast, which she just mentioned, which is in the top 20 management and marketing podcasts, over 100,000 plus downloads, and I'm sure that'll continue to grow. And she's just kind of a wealth of knowledge. She worked with Gary Vee back in the day, but it's so exciting to see she's becoming kind of a personal branding expert and really understands LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn. So Brittany, I want to thank you again for joining this session of Startup Series Live, and hopefully as questions continue to come in after the fact, we can answer them because you really do have such great knowledge. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and please, I will answer any questions you guys have.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining, and everyone, we appreciate you coming to see this session of Startup Series Live. I think this was number 8 or 9, and we'll be continuing them generally on a weekly basis. I'm off to London next week, which will be interesting, and maybe we'll do something from there. But yeah, this has been great content, and hope everyone's enjoyed and learned something from Brittany. And feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn and certainly follow her podcast and other content. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you on the next session of Startup Series Live.